When I was originally planning out this course, I wanted to use nested attributes for blog tags. But after thinking about it for a little while, I think I'm going to change this. We're still going to learn about nested attributes, but I think there is a model that's a better fit for it than blog tags. And part of the reason is because there's really a standard when it comes to implementing tags on posts and things like that. And it utilizes the acts as taggable on gem. And this does all of the kinds of things that you'd want in terms of adding tags to posts, and it does it in a much more elegant fashion than if we were to build everything from scratch. So this is a point where I definitely would point to the gem and integrate it for tags, and we may do that later on if we have time in the course. But for right now, I'm going to instead move this, and so right here I'm going to edit it. Instead of blog tags, I'm going to say for portfolio technologies. And your first question may be that we don't have a technologies table here, so that's going to be the thing that we're going to build out in this guide. And then we're going to walk through how to make it a nested type of form in the next guide. So here I'm going to say Rails G model, and we're going to call it technology, and this is going to have a name which is going to be a string, and that's really all we need for the internal attributes. We also need a reference, so this is going to be it's going to be connected to the portfolio, so it's going to be portfolio references. And we'll go take a look at what this actually created for us. So if I open up Sublime and open this up, we can see that we have a name, and then we have a foreign key relationship to portfolio. So if I run Rails DB migrate, this is going to run the migration, and then we'll check the schema file, and then we'll go update our models like we did earlier. So this all looks like it worked. If I go to schema here, now you can see we have a technologies table, has a name, and then it has a connection to the portfolio ID. Now, one cool thing that references does for us if you add it at the beginning when you create and when you generate the model is it actually does part of the work for us. So if I go to technology.rb, you can see it adds in belongs to portfolio, which is a nice handy little thing. And we still have to open up our portfolio file because it doesn't go in and update this for us. So I'm going to the very top of the file, say a portfolio has many technologies, and save it. And this gives a little hint on how cool the pluralization features are in Rails. So far we've always had our items, all of our models ending in some type of letter where you could just add O or add S at the end of it. So portfolios, you could add an S and it is portfolios. With our other items, skills, it's the same thing. Each one of these, if you open up schema, blogs, same thing, portfolio, skill, topics, all of these make it very easy to just add an S to make it plural. But Rails is pretty good at recognizing traditional words that have the ability to be plural and the standard way of doing it. So instead of them trying to just add an S at the end of technologies, it did the proper switch and it did IES, which I think is a very cool thing. So now with that in place, we can test this out. I'm going to run Rails console, and I can create a technology. So technology create with a bang, give it a name of Rails, and we can give this a portfolio ID of portfolio dot last dot ID. Now that worked, so if I go technology dot last dot portfolio, that worked. And if I go portfolio portfolio.last.technologies. I think I spelled that wrong. Technologies. There we go. That worked. So here we have technologies. Their technology gets called back, and so we have Rails and we have all of these items that can now be added to a portfolio. And the last thing I'm going to do here, just so we have some data to see in the application, I'm going to add it to our seeds file. So right below portfolio, I'm going to create this, and we'll do just 3 of them. So I'll say 3 times do technology. Into that, and inside of it, I'm going to create some new technology items. So technology create, and let's put in just a regular name and do our standard convention where we put it in a string. So we'll say technology 1, or it'll start with technology 0. And then each one of these needs to have a reference. So we're going to say technology and switch it to our portfolio ID of portfolio.last.id. Now this, it would definitely work, and this is perfectly fine, but since we are in the data management section of the course, I want to also show you another way of doing this, and it's going to give a preview of what we're going to talk about in the next guide. So before I get into, before I run this, let me put our little put statement here. I'm going to say 3 technologies created. Okay, so right now, like I said, all this would work, but there is one other kind of syntax that we could become more familiar with, and that is this. I'm going to find the last portfolio item, so I'm going to say portfolio.last. It brings that up, and so I stored it in a variable called p, so if I do p technologies, it brings back our technologies. Now, the other thing that I can do is I can say p.technologies.create and give a title, or not title, it's going to be name. Give a name of Ruby. And as you can see, that worked. And now if I do p technologies again, now we have another item. So this is pretty cool. What Rails allows you to do is, because we're taking advantage of Active Record, it allows us to start with the parent element, which in this case is the portfolio. Remember, a portfolio owns multiple technologies. It has many technologies. So you can grab a single portfolio item and then call .technologies on it, .create, and then it will by default, notice how I didn't have to pass in a portfolio ID right here. So by default, it will go and it will do that work for us, which I think is pretty cool. So let's go back and let's update this syntax to take advantage of that. So instead of it saying technology create, I'm going to just grab this last portfolio. And here at the front, I'm going to say portfolio.last.technologies create, and then pass this in exactly like we did before. And this syntax should still work. So I'm going to say Rails DB setup. And it looks like that all worked. It says we have 3 technologies created. So now if I type in Rails C, portfolio.last.technologies.count, you can see that our last portfolio item has 3 technologies associated with it. So everything there is working nicely. Let's add this to, well, let's hit get status just to see what we changed. We updated the portfolio model, the schema, the seeds file. We added our new technology item and our new migration file. So let's add all of that. git commit, and we can say integrated technologies model, and that should be all we need to do there. Git push origin data feature, and I'll see you in the next video where I show you how we can connect what we built right here with our form.